She was supposed to marry a prince, but woke up beside a stranger. Welcome to the Velvet Story, where every word unveils a heartbeat and every chapter peels back a mask. In a world of billionaires, betrayal, and secrets dressed in silk, beneath the mask follows Duan Milam, the heiress betrayed at the altar, drugged into ruin, and dragged into a scandal that should have broken her. But fate had other plans. Standing at the edge of ruin is Keen Yiran, cold, calculating, and untouchable, the very man meant to be destroyed beside her. What begins as a cover-up turns into something neither of them expected. So press play, lean in, and prepare to fall into a love that was never meant to bloom, but might just burn the world to the ground. This is Beneath the Mask, only on the Velvet Story. Because the heart never lies, even when everything else does. Chapter 7, Echoes of Firelight. Keen Yiran never meant to care. At least, that's what he told himself. When he first brought her to his penthouse, it was protection. When he offered her tea in silence, it was strategy. When he told his security chief to double-check her family's ward every hour, it was responsibility. But tonight, when he saw her sitting curled on his balcony in an old hoodie, hair tied up in a loose knot, face lit only by moonlight, it didn't feel like duty anymore. It felt like gravity. By morning, Keen Yiran was gone. He left a handwritten note on the marble counter. Went to confirm a lead on Lin Wenshao. Security's outside. Eat something. Why? Milam stared at the note longer than she should have. She wasn't used to this version of a man. Quiet, capable, gentle in silence. He didn't hover, didn't demand, but still somehow made her feel safe. Which was why what she planned to do next, she had to do alone. She dressed quickly, tying her hair into a sleek bun. Grey blouse, sharp pants. Minimal makeup. Not a heiress. Not a fallen bride. Just Duan Mei. She left through the service exit, avoiding security, and hailed a private ride to an address stored deep in her memory. Langson Private Care Facility. It was a place only a few knew existed, the kind of quiet nursing home that catered to clients who needed to disappear. 10 minutes later, she stood at a door labeled Suite 312. She hesitated before knocking. Then, tap tap tap. The door creaked open to reveal an elderly woman, eyes sharp despite the lines around them. "Miss Zhu," she said with a dry smile. "I wondered when you'd come." Madame Chen had once worked as her maternal grandfather's personal housekeeper, before retiring mysteriously after the Zhu family began distancing themselves from old allies. "Your grandfather suspected things long before your wedding," Madame Chen said, pouring her green tea with trembling hands. "He warned your father about the Lin Group's connections to underground exchanges. Lin Wenshao had been bribing officials long before Zhao Yan's proposal." Milam leaned forward. "Do you know anything about the night it happened? The hotel? I know this." Madame Chen lowered her voice. "There was another man who was supposed to be drugged that night. Not Zhao Yan. Someone powerful. Someone Lin Group considered it a threat." Milan's heartbeat slowed. "What man?" "I don't know his name. Only that he was important. Young. Ruthless. Dangerous to the Lin family." The pieces slid into place like falling dominoes. Keen Yiran. He was never meant to be her savior. He was the target. They both were. Back at the penthouse, Keen Yiran returned 2 hours later to find her gone. Security was still stationed outside, no one saw her leave. No note. No message. His hands clenched into fists. Then, without waiting, he grabbed his phone. Track her. Now. It was dusk when he found her, walking down a quiet hill outside Langson. He pulled up beside her in his black Maybach, rolled down the window, and said nothing. Just looked at her. His expression is unreadable. She opened the door and slipped in silently. The ride back was silent, until she spoke. "I had to go alone." "Why?" he asked. Not with anger, but with something deeper. "Worry. Pain. Because this started before I met you. And I needed to know how deep it runs." He exhaled. "Long. Tired. Next time, tell me." She glanced at him, surprise. "You're not mad?" I was terrified. She looked away. The inside of the car felt too small, too warm, too intense. I found something, she murmured. Lin Wenshao intended to drug you. Not Zhao Yan. His head turned sharply. What? They feared you. They knew if you aligned with my family, the Lin Group's ambitions would be crushed. So they wanted to destroy both of us. Qin Yiran went still. So it wasn't just a random betrayal. It was warfare. They made it look like I seduced you, Milam said bitterly. Made it look like I disgraced myself. But I wasn't the trap. We both were. His jaw clenched. And suddenly, he pulled over, turning off the engine. The city lights blurred in the windshield, but inside the car, silence fell like snow. Then, softly, I remember waking up that morning, Qin Yiran said, his voice gravelly, his gaze unfocused as if looking back through time. The room was cold. My head was splitting. I didn't know where I was for a moment. There was no one beside me, just the echo of something I couldn't understand. Melan's breath caught in her throat. He went on, his voice lower. I thought it was a trap. My family has enemies, rivals who want to see me ruined. I assumed someone hired a woman to compromise me. But when I stood up, I saw something caught on the buttons of my shirt. A piece of lace, he said. Melan's eyes widened. White, he said. Delicate. Torn from something expensive. A veil, maybe. He looked at her now, eyes searching. I kept it. Not because I knew it was you. I had no idea. I just couldn't throw it away. It felt like the only honest thing in a night full of lies. She turned away, eyes shining. I didn't know who you were either, she said quietly. I thought it was Zhao Yan. Until I woke up, and everything felt wrong. They set us up, Qin said, jaw clenched. They thought if I woke up in that bed, humiliated, I'd vanish from your family's affairs. But they didn't expect me to care. Milam turned to face him. Startled. You didn't even know it was me. I didn't need to. I could feel it. That the person beside me didn't belong in that trap. That she didn't deserve it. He paused. And now that I know it was you, I'm not going to let them use you again. Silence stretched between them. Heavy. Electric. She didn't know what to say. She couldn't say anything. But deep inside her chest, something began to burn. He looked at her, eyes burning. I knew someone wanted us to believe it was our mistake. Our weakness. Milam swallowed. And yet, you protected me anyway. He leaned closer. Because I saw the look in your eyes when you woke up at the hospital. You weren't guilty. You were broken. Not because of what we did, but because someone tried to take your choice away. She blinked. His voice dropped, hoarse. I fell for you at that moment. Her heart stopped. You were fire wrapped in silk. Dignity under ruin. You didn't need anyone, but you still fought for everyone else. He turned away again, breathing hard. You don't have to say anything, he said. I know you're not ready. I don't expect anything. She stared at him, and for the first time in weeks, in months, she didn't feel frozen. She felt warm, but she couldn't speak. She just felt. That night, as she stood brushing her hair in the guest bathroom, she touched her wrist gently. The bruise from that night was long gone. But the memory wasn't. She closed her eyes. And for the first time, she let herself remember, not the pain, not the shame, but the warmth of the arms she'd slept in. The calm heartbeat that steadied her when nothing else did. The soft breath against her neck. The night she thought was ruined might have been fate in disguise. End of Chapter 7. Chapter 8, The Masked Ball. 2 days passed. 2 days of shared silence, cautious glances, and moments thick with things neither dared to name. Milam spent most of her time at the hospital, overseeing her family's care. Qin Yiran didn't push, he simply made sure she had a warm car waiting, someone to carry her tea, and new records from the private doctor delivered each morning. She never asked how he got those documents so quickly. She stopped asking how he did anything. But she still hadn't asked about that morning, their morning. And he hadn't brought it up again. Until today. It started with a letter. A crisp ivory envelope, thick with embossed gold foil, slid under the apartment door while she sipped tea in her oversized hoodie. The Chow family's annual charity masquerade. Invitation for Miss Duen Mealam. Guest allowance 1. Formal dress required. Attendance expected. She stared at the cursive, heart sinking. How did they even know where I am? Behind her, Keen Iran leaned against the door frame, watching. The Chow family has ears everywhere. They probably think you'll hide and sulk, and they want to parade your downfall. She blinked at him. Then why would I go? Because, he said calmly, the best revenge is elegance. Later that evening, she stepped into the living room, and found a box waiting for her. What's this? She asked. A gown, he said, not looking up from his phone. And a mask. If you're going to walk into that lion's den, you are going to do it looking like a goddess. She hesitated. Why are you helping me like this? Her voice was quiet, unsure. He looked at her then, really looked. Because I can't forget the night I woke up with lace wrapped around my fingers and the scent of jasmine on my skin. I didn't know you yet. But I knew I needed to protect you. Melan's breath hitched. She lowered her gaze. That night, I thought I was ruined. You weren't, he said, his voice rough. You were stolen. There's a difference. That night, the world changed. Melam stepped into the Chow estate like a phoenix reborn. Her gown was deep crimson, silk hugging her form like a second skin. And the mask she wore glittered like diamonds. Her hair was pinned in loose curls, revealing the slender curve of her neck. Beside her stood Keen Yiran, dressed in a black tailored tuxedo, his mask sleek and minimal. They were a sight, a statement. The whispers began the moment they entered. Is that Duen Mealam? I thought she was hiding after the scandal. And Keen Yiran? Aren't they enemies? She ignored them all, but her heart raced. Her hand trembled at her side, until he gently slipped his fingers around hers. A silent promise. You are not alone. The night blurred with champagne, laughter that rang hollow, and glittering smiles with venom underneath. She stood beside him as he spoke to other souls, his hand always a breath away from hers, his gaze always returning to her. And somewhere between one toast and the next, her heart stuttered, not because of the crowd, but because she saw him watching her, the way no one had ever looked at her. Not with hunger, not with expectation, just with awe. When the orchestra began to play, a smooth violin sweeping across the marble ballroom, Keen turned to her. May I? She blinked. Dance? He offered his hand. It's a masquerade. Everyone wears a mask. Why not enjoy it for a night? She hesitated. But then, her fingers found his. He led her to the floor gently, respectfully, as if she was something precious. The music wrapped around them like silk. Their bodies moved with surprising ease, like they had done this in another life. And as he spun her slowly, their eyes met through the masks. Something shifted. No words. Just the press of his hand against the small of her back, her fingers against his chest, their hearts between them. This was not the cold alliance she once feared. This was warmth, shelter, fire. The music slowed. The world held its breath. And in that moment, Keen Yiran leaned in, not to steal a kiss, but just to rest his forehead against hers. Her breath caught. Why are you doing this? She whispered. He closed his eyes. Because every time I look at you, I stop breathing. She swallowed. I'm not ready. I know. I might never be. I'll still be here. The next day, she found a small velvet box on her nightstand. Inside was not jewelry. It was a folded scrap of lace. Soft, fragile, familiar. And a note. I thought I imagined it. Until I met you. Now I know I wasn't dreaming. Why? She stared at it for a long time. And then, without thinking, she pressed it to her heart. And smiled. Just a little. End of chapter 8. Heartbreak chapter 9. Shadows that whisper. The next morning, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Mealam stood by the wide windows, sunlight pooling at her bare feet as the city pulsed beneath her like a restless heart. Her fingers clutched the small piece of lace she found last night, the one Keen Yiran left for her. She hadn't slept. Not because she was disturbed, but because for the first time in a long while, her heart didn't feel empty, it felt confused. What did she want from him? Was it safety, kindness, or something else, something warmer, scarier? Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. An unknown number. She frowned, picked it up, and answered cautiously. Hello? Silence. Then a distorted voice, low and hollow, like someone speaking from the bottom of a well. He's not what he seems. Walk away from Keen Yiran while you still can. A chill ran down her spine. Who is this? You are smart, Miss Duin. Don't let the same mistake ruin you again. Stay with him, and the next accident won't spare your brother's life. Click. The line went dead. Meelam stared at the phone, her breath caught halfway in her throat. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from fury. Whoever it was knew. They knew about her brother, her parents, the accident. They were watching. She tightened her jaw. No, not again. She wouldn't be a pawn. Keen Yiran returned from a meeting later that evening. He found her at the balcony, arms crossed, wind tugging at her hair. She looked like a statue carved from cold steel and shattered dreams. He sensed it immediately, something had changed. Meelam? She turned slowly. Who knows I'm staying here? No one outside my staff. Why? There was a call. Anonymous. She met his eyes. They said I should leave you. Or next time, my brother won't survive. His entire posture changed. Gone was the calm, controlled businessman. In his place stood something more dangerous, and infinitely more terrifying. What exactly did they say? Her voice was low. That you're not what you seem. That I've been fooled before. He stepped forward. Did you believe them? She blinked. That question shouldn't have hurt. But it did. No, she said after a pause. But I've learned not to trust anyone blindly, no matter how many walls they break down for me. That stopped him. For a moment, he didn't speak. Just looked at her, and something in his gaze softened, like he wasn't angry at her but at what she'd endured. Meelam, he said quietly. You're right not to trust. But I will earn it. She didn't reply, not with words. But she didn't walk away either. That night, he made a call. I want every trace of last night's call tracked. No mercy. His assistant on the other end hesitated. Sir, this voice manipulation tech, it's highly encrypted. Might be from offshore servers. Then hire someone better, he growled. I want names. He didn't sleep either, because Keen Yiran, the ice-cold CEO, the untouchable heir, was feeling something he hadn't in a very long time. Fear, not for himself, but for her. The next day brought a different sort of storm. The tabloids. A photo, blurred but damning, Duin Meelam, masked in crimson silk, dancing with Keen Yiran at the Chow family masquerade. The headline screamed, from heiress to mistress, Keen Yiran's scandalous date with ruined bride. Meelam froze when she saw it. She was in the hospital lobby, visiting her brother, when the news alert popped up on her phone. Whispers followed her like shadows. Isn't that Duin Meelam? I thought she disappeared. Look at this, she's with Keen Yiran now. That man changes women like neckties. She walked faster, pretending not to hear, but their words scraped across old wounds like salt. In her brother's room, she sat beside his bed, carefully smoothing his blanket. Zhenghao, still paralyzed, couldn't speak, but his eyes moved. He blinked. He saw her. I'm trying, she whispered to him. I'm doing everything I can. Please hold on. She didn't go back to the apartment that night. Instead, she sat alone in a quiet tea house near the hospital, stirring a pot of chrysanthemum tea that had long gone cold. She was slipping again, into silence, into isolation, until she heard footsteps, familiar. She looked up. Keen Yiran stood there, muscless, emotion written plainly across his face. You didn't come back. You didn't call. She replied softly. I didn't want to pressure you. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then she said, Is it always like this with you? Headlines and whispers? Pictures taken in shadows? Yes, he said honestly. But this time, I care. She looked away. I'm tired of being a scandal, Keen Yiran. Then let's write a different story. Her brows furrowed. What do you mean? He reached into his coat and pulled out a crisp folder. Inside were documents. Thick, official. A joint investment proposal. A business plan. And her name. Duan Meelam, co-founder and CEO. She stared at it in disbelief. This, she murmured. You want me to start a company with you? No. He leaned closer. I want you to rebuild your empire. And I want to stand beside you while you do. Her throat tightened. Why would you risk that? Your reputation? Because you are worth it. The words hung in the air like stars. And for the first time, Meelam didn't flinch. Later that night, as she walked beside him toward the car, her hand brushed his. He didn't move away. Neither did she. Somewhere between grief and healing, their story was beginning to change. Not fast, not perfect, but real. End of chapter 9. In a world built on deception, their truth could be lethal. That was another pulse in the story of Beneath the Mask. If your heart's still racing, you're not alone. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Velvet Story, where every tale is dipped in elegance, danger, and longing. New chapters drop soon, so hit that bell icon, and don't let the next twist slip past you. Until then, remember, sometimes the mask we wear is the only thing protecting the heart beneath.